Greetings, families. So today I am talking about birthdays. If you struggle with birthdays, if you found birthdays to be really, really painful, if you are estranged from your family and you find birthdays really excruciating, if you just ignore your birthday altogether, then this podcast is for you. Okay, this podcast is for you. So, for those of you that don't know me, my name is June Allen, and I am the founder of the Yard of Greatness at juneallen.net. So, today I want to talk to you about this thing around birthdays. Something that I notice with pretty much all of my clients actually is that they find it very, very difficult to celebrate their birthdays. And it's a very complex situation. It's very complex within the context of the relationship they have with themselves, the relationship they have with their families, the relationship they have with their friends. It's just a very difficult thing to navigate. Now, obviously, in society, birthdays are something, there's an expectation around birthdays that is supposed to be celebrated, that everyone's supposed to be happy, this, that, and the other. But the reality is that for a lot of people, especially my clients, birthdays are not something that is it is joyful. So something the stuff I'm going to share with you today is stuff that I share with a lot of my clients. It's something that I've done. Okay, I've struggled with birthdays too. Okay, I'm also in that camp. Um, but what I've done over the years is I've adapted a system, a process that I use every time the birthdays come around, so that I'm not kind of stuck in this limbo of kind of wanting to celebrate it, but kind of dreading it at the same time. And, as soon as the date gets close, I found myself kind of getting more and more depressed around it. So, yeah, I think it's really good. It's really good that that you've got the opportunity today to hear some really great tools and things for you to think about when you're thinking about your birthday. Okay, so I have actually created a free workbook to go with today's session. So if you would like a copy of this birthday workbook, you can go to my website, go to heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. When you go to that page, there'll be a tab on there that says free products or something like that. Um, or free tools, I think it's called. Just click on that, and then there'll be another link where it will just tell you to go to the title of this podcast, which is When Birthdays Hurt, Learning How to Celebrate Yourself. Just click on that. You'll have to put your email address in or whatever, and then you'll get the free workbook delivered to your email. Okay. And then you'll have that. You can save it, download it. Whenever you've got birthday coming up, you use the workbook. Okay. Right. So just a little bit of housekeeping. So I've got three requests. Okay. If there's anything that I say in today's podcast that you find useful, that you find helpful, if you've got any questions or anything that you want to ask me about today's podcast, then you can email me at info@yardofgreatness.com. Okay, info@yardofgreatness.com. If you've got any friends or anything that you think that might find this podcast helpful, then send it to them. Okay. And the third thing to remember is that, yes, I am a trauma therapist, but I am not your therapist. So if you're looking for therapy, if you're looking for a business coach, if you're looking for teaching, I do teaching and stuff as well. Then again, you can find all those details about how to work with me at heal.juneallen.net. Okay, great. So now let's get into the content. Okay. So the first thing to remember is that it is absolutely normal to have complex feelings around your birthday. Okay. There is the assumption, like I was saying before, that everybody thinks, oh, it's your birthday. And people will start saying to you, oh, it's your birthday soon, isn't it? Oh, what are you going to do for your birthday? And all this, that, and the other. And I know for me, it used to trigger shame, it used to trigger dread, it used to trigger a lot of sadness, actually. And the reason for that is, it's about remembering your history, your birthday history. What were your birthdays like when you were a child? What were your birthdays like when you were a child? What were your family's relationship to birthdays? How do you remember birthdays? Um, how do you celebrate? Have you celebrated your birthday with your friends? Do your friends remember? Do you normally do something? How do you feel? What happens in your body when you start even hear the word birthday? What comes up for you? Okay. When you start to create more awareness around your relationship to your birthday, then that's when things can really start to change. Okay. And the birthdays are, I think accepting that birthdays can be complicated, okay, is the first step as well. When you have that awareness around how you really feel about your birthday, even if you don't really understand it, okay, when you start to create some awareness around how you feel about your birthday, it's going to be a lot easier for you to make different choices about how you want to celebrate your birthday, if at all. Okay. But see also for birthdays as well, there's also a really powerful opportunity for you to revisit your relationship to yourself, your relationship to your friends, your relationship to your family. You can kind of check in with yourself. How do I feel about myself? How do I feel, how do I celebrate myself? Do I celebrate myself? Do you even want to celebrate yourself? If not, why not? You can start to ask yourself these questions. So and on an annual basis you get to have this little review of yourself, your relationship to yourself. So there's an opportunity in there for you to own what's true. Okay, and if there is stuff there that you want to change or amend, or you do want to learn how to celebrate yourself a lot more and not avoid your birthday like the plague, then there are going to be tools in this podcast that are going to help you do that. Okay, so the first thing is to really be is to really accept that or understand that not everybody's birthday is happy, and that it's a complex date. It's a complex annual anniversary that you have. The other thing to remember is that as well, if you avoid your birthday, if you decide that you don't want to do anything, even if you decide that you don't want to do anything for your birthday, your body is still going to remember. Okay, your body is still going to remember that it's your birthday and that there's a history there. And so even if you decide not to do anything big for your birthday, your body is going to remind you. It might show up in different ways. There might still be grief there. You might still feel tearful. You might still feel hurt. You might still feel like you want to withdraw. There are going to be feelings there on your birthday. So regardless of how you celebrate or what you do on your birthday, it's important that your inner parent, okay, this is the self-parenting opportunity for you to really be intentional about how you celebrate. And I say the word celebrate kind of in quotation marks because it might be that you don't necessarily want to make jolly of it, but it's still important that you care for yourself in some way on your birthday, okay, so that your inner parts, yourself, that you feel seen and that you feel heard by yourself, even if not by anybody else, that you see yourself, that you take care of yourself, that you are compassionate around your birthday or whatever it is. Okay, it's important that you really do self-parent and that you do care for yourself around your birthday, okay, regardless of what anything else happens. Okay, so the first thing that I'll say actually about what's often difficult around birthdays, and a lot of my clients have talked about this, and I've had this myself, is that there's a lot of triggers around having needs, a lot of shame around having needs. Now, if you grew up in a home where having needs was dangerous, or having needs you would get punished for vocalizing having needs and stuff like that, birthdays are going to be hard. Birthdays are going to be painful because you're not used to asking for what you need. You're not used to being vocal about what you want, even to yourself. And that shame that you have around the birthday is going to, you may well have internalized that. So you don't feel comfortable celebrating yourself, and you don't feel comfortable allowing other people to celebrate you. You're not able to receive. Attached to a lot of shame is that receiving wound. Okay, there's a receiving wound that's going to get activated around the birthday. So you find it difficult to receive anything from yourself. You find it difficult to receive anything from anybody else. You find it difficult to receive love or appreciation, to be the center of attention. All of those things are going to be hard. I know for me, I used to find birthdays excruciating. I used to find birthdays really excruciating because of it. And I didn't know at the time, obviously I wasn't in therapy at the time or anything like that, or doing any recovery work when I first started being more mindful of celebrating birthdays. And yeah, I just found it really painful because it was almost like an anniversary for me to kind of remember that I had I didn't have a good relationship with my family. I didn't have a good relationship with, I didn't have friends that were really close and stuff like that. I just felt really isolated. I really felt my relationship anorexia. That's kind of what I remember on old birthdays, was just how anorexic my relationships were and how isolated I felt in myself. And so birthdays were really painful. So I didn't want to celebrate myself. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want anyone to say anything to me about my birthday. And then there were quite a few years where I didn't tell anyone that it was my birthday, because I just didn't want to have to deal with the pain of the reality of what was going on in my life. So I was thinking, if I can avoid my birthday, if I can avoid talking about it, if I can avoid anybody saying anything to me on my birthday, then that means that I wouldn't have to feel the pain. I wouldn't have to deal with the suffering that I felt around my birthday. And so, yeah, shame is a really important trigger. Shame is a really activating, a common activation around birthday. If you had a dysfunctional family, if you were neglected as a child or as an adult, if you've got, relationships or friendships that are very anorexic, where you don't really see them that often, or they're not very close and stuff like that, birthdays can really amplify all of that stuff, and can make you feel some type of way about it. Okay, so yeah, it's important to kind of name those things, because wanting something or wanting to be celebrated or wanting to belong to a group is part of being human. It's part of being human. But we can deny ourselves these things. We can deny ourselves these experiences because of the neglect. Okay, because of the childhood neglect. We internalize that, and then we start to shame ourselves for wanting to be celebrated, for wanting to do things with our friends, for wanting our friends to kind of celebrate us and do things with us for our birthday. Okay, for wanting recognition, for wanting to be cared for wanting the birthday to be named as something, as to be worthy of being celebrated. These are all things that are normal part of being a human being, but those things, having needs, having wants, can get distorted, when you're raised in a dysfunctional home. And also, it's not just about the dysfunctional home or whatever, but it's also about society. The system still don't want us to celebrate ourselves, especially being a black person. Being a black person, they don't want us to celebrate anything. They don't want us to celebrate anything unless it benefits the system. They'll celebrate us working like dogs because it benefits the system. But for God's sake, don't celebrate yourself. Don't Let's not celebrate each other, because it doesn't benefit the systems. It doesn't benefit these oppressive systems when we celebrate ourselves, when we care for ourselves. Because if we care for ourselves, we might start saying no to what the system wants us to do, which is allowing ourselves to be used, which is allowing ourselves to be overworked, underpaid, all of that stuff that these systems want us to do, denying of self, abandonment of self, so that we stay locked into what the system wants us to do. So, we're not just neglected within the context of our neglectful families, we're also neglected socially within these systems. And that's more pressure for us to kind of internalize the abandonment of ourselves. And then, it's another layer of, well, don't celebrate yourself. Don't get too big for your boots or whatever it is. Don't get too big for don't get too much of a big head wanting to celebrate yourself. So it's understanding all of these layers and how we internalize these things. When we experience these things externally, we internalize them, and we feel like we're not worthy of celebrating ourselves. And then again, the birthdays then become something to be ashamed of, something that we want to avoid, because it just feels too much for us to have people celebrate us, and to have people love us on our birthdays. Okay, so the other thing that comes with that, with the shame and stuff like that, is really thinking about the grief. There's a lot of grief that comes up around birthdays that people don't really talk about. People don't really talk about the grief that arises, especially when you're in a family where there's estrangement, or where there was violence, where parents were not available. So I'm just going to walk you through some types of grief, layers of grief that you might want to consider around your birthday. And this is something that you can journal about, talk to your therapist about, talk to your recovery coach about, talk about it in your recovery meetings. It's important that you share this stuff, so that you can sort of process the complexities of your birthday and what comes up for you around your birthday. All right, so I'm just going to share some of the layers of grief that come up. Okay, so it's grief for the childhood birthdays that didn't happen. You know, many of us and many of us had birthdays where we weren't celebrated at all. There was no birthday parties, there was no birthday presents. And it might be that, our families didn't necessarily, they didn't want to celebrate us. It's just that maybe they didn't have the money or they didn't know how to, or that, there was too much poverty. I remember that I think I only remember having maybe one birthday party when I was young, but most of the time, all my brothers and sisters that, we didn't have birthday parties at all. But I remember being, being wished happy birthday on my birthday, but that was it. That was it. And the rest of the day would just go on as normal. That's kind of my recollection of it. And so as I got older, I began to resent when birthdays came around because it just reminded me of feeling invisible, actually. And I think what I wanted when I was a child was not necessarily loads of gifts or money or not, because I knew my family weren't in a position to be able to do that. But I think that what was missing is that I would have loved from there to be I would have liked to have felt more seen on my birthday. I would have liked some extra hugs and some extra, some extra food, maybe a little cake or whatever, that it would have been easy to do those things. But those things never came. And I think it's those things, feeling more seen, feeling more loved on my birthday, feeling more visible, feeling more celebrated in the affection and that kind of stuff. And those things never came on my birthday, other than the happy birthday in the morning. That was it. And so, there's grief that comes with not being celebrated around birthdays. How did your family, what is your family's relationship to birthdays? Did it something that they went all out all the time? Did you all, sing happy birthday to that person? Did you buy gifts for that person? Were there parties every year? Did you have a say in the gifts, or were they surprises? Did your friends at school celebrate your birthdays and all of that kind of stuff? Gosh, I remember one time actually, when I was at sixth form. I went to sixth form college. This is when I lived in Suffolk, and I remember there was a guy that I was dating at the time, and I remember going to I think we went out for lunch, and when I came back, he'd arranged, he'd gone out to the shop and bought a few like sausage rolls and cakes and stuff like that. So when I came back after my lunch break or whatever, there was all of this stuff in the common room where he was basically celebrating my birthday, and I remember crying. And he found it really. I remember he found it quite. He was really surprised that I was crying. He didn't understand why I was crying. It's because it's the first time, one of the first times that I really felt seen on my birthday, that somebody else had done something for me on my birthday, and there was some shame there that came up because I just wasn't used to being that visible on my birthday. But there was a part of me that really appreciated it, that really loved it, that brought me to tears because I was in a situation where, yeah, I felt really seen. I felt really seen and heard. So, being able to talk about your relationship to your birthday, what is your history of your birthdays, is important. It's important data for you to understand why you feel about to help you understand why you feel about your birthday today. Okay, how you feel about your birthdays, in the present. Okay, that stuff is important. So when you think about your childhood stuff and what happened in your childhood around it, where were you? What happened? How did you feel around your birthdays? Okay. There's also grief around parents or caregivers that were unavailable around your birthday. If your parents were working around your birthday, did they always seem to be working? Did you spend birthdays by yourself when you were a child or with your siblings? And if you did spend the birthdays with your siblings, like what did you do? Unavailable caregivers, parents unavailable, or siblings that didn't celebrate you, all of that stuff is going to have an impact on how you feel about yourself and how you feel about celebrating yourself. Your ability to celebrate yourself is going to have a direct impact on your history, on your relationships. And it's really about grieving the loss of those things, the loss of not being celebrated, not being seen, not being cherished, because you need to feel cherished. Feeling cherished by other people who's supposed to care about you is important, and birthdays are an obvious opportunity for that stuff to be, for that stuff to manifest. Okay. And if you didn't experience those things, then you are going to feel some sort of type of way. you are going to feel some sort of type of way about it. Okay. So, yeah, there might be grief around friendships. I think I did just talk about this previously before. There might be grief around friendships that are not that were not that deep. Friendships that were anorexic. Maybe you're anorexic in your friendships where you can't allow yourself to get very close to your friends, or they're very surface. They don't really celebrate. They can't celebrate you because your friendships are not you're not that close. You're not that deep. So when birthdays come around, you find yourself alone because you haven't, for whatever reason, and it might be childhood stuff, it might be, I know for me, I've had anorexic friendships in the past, and relationships actually, but I've had friendships that were also very anorexic because I couldn't allow myself to get very close to people because of the violence I experienced and witnessed when I was a child. And so closeness was always dangerous. So it showed up in my friendships and my relationships, as as avoidance. I was very avoidant in my friendships and relationships because of it. So I had very anorexic relationships, which meant that when the birthdays came around, I wasn't really able to celebrate them. I wasn't able to celebrate my birthdays with friends because they were very shallow. They were very, yeah, I didn't know how to even ask for what I wanted in my friendships at that point. So it's grieving the fact that I didn't have the capacity to build um really deep friendships. So there's the grief around that as well. um yeah, there's grief around the younger parts of us, the childhood parts, not just the childhood parts, but also the younger adult, our younger adult selves, okay, that were not celebrated. The younger parts that were not celebrated. I didn't, even as a parent as well, when I was a very in the early days when I was a mum, um there just wasn't capacity, there wasn't the money for me to really celebrate myself. And I'd only sort of, I didn't go into recovery. Actually, I went into recovery when my daughter was 18 months. I went to my first recovery meeting and went to therapy and stuff like that. So, in those days when I was a single parent, just trying to figure things out, I didn't have a lot of time, energy, money, capacity to be able to really celebrate the birthdays the way that I really wanted to. And that was really sad. So it's kind of, again, it's grieving the loss of having the capacity to really celebrate myself in the way that I really, really wanted to. And that stuff is painful. Stuff is really painful. And then there's the stuff around the estrangement, it's grieving the fact that you're not celebrated within your family of origin because it's unsafe. Birthdays in when you have family estrangement is another complexity and grief that people don't really talk about enough. And that stuff is going to come up around your birthdays. And this is something that I talk to my clients about. And I've got quite a few clients that are estranged from their families, and it's incredibly excruciating for them to be able to have those conversations around the reality that actually I can't really celebrate my birthday with these people because they're unsafe. And then there is a grieving process that has to happen. you know there is a grieving process that has to happen around that, because it's painful. And even if you try and ignore it and try and not think about it or whatever, your body is still going to remember. Okay, your grief is still going to show up around the estrangement on your birthday. So it's important that you create space to be able to do that. So now I just want to move on to some of the solutions, some of the tools and stuff that I use um to deal with birthdays and learning how to celebrate myself in a way that is really powerful. And this is something that I've kind of perfected over the years. And yeah, and also I teach my clients this too. This too. So again, if you want these tools, if you would like the free little workbook that I've created around this, then click the link in my bio, go to heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. Okay. So the first thing that I introduced around this is to have a birthday season. Okay. Rather than just having a birthday, which is one day, create a birthday season, okay, that works for you. Now, for me, I have a birthday month. Okay, I have a birthday month because then that means that it takes the pressure off trying to celebrate just one day. And then what I do is I spread the things that I'm gonna do for myself over the course of the whole of the month. So my birthday's in November. Okay, so I plan things, I schedule things, and I'll go into that in a minute about how to do that. But I create I celebrate it across the whole month, and that feels so good because then all of the different parts of me that have different needs, then they have the opportunity to do different things, and it gives me an opportunity to plan different things with different people for different parts of myself, and that really really works. It really, really works when I do that. So, if you want to do like a birthday month, the first thing to do is kind of, just kind of I block out the whole month. Not obviously so that I don't do anything else in terms of work. Sometimes I've done it actually. I did a sabbatical. I've done a sabbatical in the past, in November, so that I can just use that month to take care of myself, and do all the things that I really want to do. But I kind of mark it in my calendar that the whole of that month, is going to be just for me. So I don't schedule anything else for anybody else unless I really want to. But whatever happens in November has to be a priority for me first and foremost, because that's my day. That's me. That's how I celebrate myself. Okay. So the next thing to do is I have like a birthday round table. Okay. After I decide the season, which for me is going to be a month, you might decide it's only 2 weeks. It might be a week for you. However, how long you can do it. It's gonna vary. But decide your season, and then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to have a birthday round table. So the birthday round table is when you, before making any kind of major plans for yourself for your birthday, you sit down and you pause, you have a moment to yourself, and you start to just invite what parts of you want to play a part in your birthday. And it doesn't necessarily have to be just a celebration, it can also be the grieving, it can be whatever. But you just ask your inner world, what internal parts of me have something to say or want to be involved in the birthday, okay, in the birthday month, okay, in the birthday season. So some examples of that, it's some example of my parts that come up might be, there might be a 9-year-old part of me that wants to do all the traditional things. My 9-year-old self wants cake. My 9-year-old self wants childlike games. It might want a party, it might want a gathering or whatever. Last year I had a gathering in my home with my chosen family, and two of my other friends actually have birthdays around the same time. So we actually had a joint party, which is fantastic. So I had a joint party in my home with the two other people that have two other chosen family members that also have birthdays around the same time. And yeah, we got together, we had I got some like little cupcakes, we made rum punch, we just chatted about stuff. We had loads of different things. Loads of different things. I think we did pass the parcel. Yeah, so we just did these little childlike things. Like my younger self really wanted to have a gathering. My 9-year-old self really wanted to have some sort of gathering. She wanted to feel loved. She wanted to feel seen. She wanted to be with other people, and she wanted to collaborate with my other chosen family members who also have birthdays. So I organized that for her, and that was fantastic. That was great. There's also a teen part of me, the part of me that's queer, the part of me that's kind of a teenager, that there's a bit of a social butterfly, wants to go out and do quite often wants to go out and do something or do some sort of event. So, I might go to the theatre, or I might go do a club night, or I might, whatever it is, somewhere where I can get really dressed up with glitter and sequins and all of that stuff. That part of myself loves all of that social butterfly stuff. So I might organize something, and that will probably be closest to my actual birth date. I'll probably do that. I'll organize something for that part. Okay. There's also the part of me that's a mum, obviously, the part that's a mother. So that part of me quite often wants rest. So I might book a little, a little weekend retreat or something somewhere, just to go and have some quiet. And if I go on retreat where I'm going to be fed and looked after and all the rest of it, and I could do my meditation or whatever it is. So I might just go away for a few days and just go on retreat. So I book that as for that part of myself. The therapist part of me, quite often maybe wants a break as well, some time off work. So if I choose to do a sabbatical for a certain amount of time, so like last year I did it for the whole month. I might do a couple of it, whatever it is, I can check in with myself and see, how long I want, how can I make it work in my calendar? Can I move clients around, all that kind of stuff. So I look at all of that for my therapist self, and I take time off so that my therapist self can actually have a break. Okay, so those are the types of things that happen that I do for those parts, and those in the meditation when I do the birthday round table, I kind of have a conversation and I just tap into those parts of myself and invite whatever parts want to be part of the birthday celebration and give them an opportunity to talk about what they would like. I don't just do experiences as well. Some of those parts don't just want an experience. Some of those parts actually want a present. Like my younger parts, they want gifts. They want me to buy them, wrap them up, and I can't open them until my actual birthday. So some examples of some of the stuff that I've done is one of my parts really wanted some glittery custom made Converse. If you go on the Converse website, you can pick this the style of Converse, and then you can click the fabric, and my 9-year-old self wanted these glitter Converse, and every time I put them on, like, that part of myself feels seen. She feels heard, she feels celebrated, and it always makes me smile. And every time I go out in these Converse, everybody always asks me, "Oh my gosh, where'd you get these Converse?" And I tell them, it was a birthday present to my 9-year-old self, a couple of years ago. So yeah, I'll just, and the other thing that I do as well, when you do the round table, when I do the round table, this is something that you need to do as well, is actually I've got like a thing in my Google Notes that is just for my birthday. And sometimes I will, if I have an idea about something that I would like to do, or I see something on the internet or whatever that I think, oh, that might be quite nice for my birthday or whatever, then I'll just put it in this Google Notes app, so that when it comes to doing the round table, or when I have this kind of meeting with myself, and you can I would suggest that you do that a couple of months before your birthday, actually, so you can start to put things in place, you can start buying things. And I actually also, in my bank, I actually have a little separate section in my bank account, where I put money into it every month, so that I can prepare and plan, and financially I can put things in place so that I can buy what I need for my birthday as well. So set yourself a budget for how much you want to spend for yourself for your birthday, divide it by 12 or whatever, and then just put that amount in the account, so that by the time the birthday comes round, you're not kind of scrambling around for money or whatever to celebrate your birthday. If you've got, like, obviously you might not necessarily know what you want to do, but set a budget for yourself, and somewhere to start. If you can top it up and you want to have extra, then you can do that, but at least there's something there so that you can treat yourself to some things if you want to. Okay, so yeah, so having that thing done financially, doing the round table thing, thinking about what the different parts want, and then putting that thing in place, and making it happen, doing it a couple of months before, so that you don't leave everything till the last minute. And essentially that is a masterclass in self-parenting. Initially there was one time where I'd actually feel quite resentful, like, why do I have to do all this myself? Why can't somebody else do it for me, and all the rest of it? And I used to get really annoyed that I had, because it takes planning and it takes intention to do this for yourself. But this self-parenting thing is such an important part of how you can love yourself. And every year that I've been doing this, and sometimes it's long to kind of plan everything and do all the rest of it, but when it comes to the execution of it, and the actual birthday season, for me, in my case, the month comes round, oh my God, I absolutely love it. I've had so many wonderful experiences on my birthday since I've started doing this. I will share this other story with you, actually, I was really quite moved. And even now, when I think about it, it makes me feel emotional. There was one year where I said to my chosen family, look, I don't want gifts for my birthday. What I would actually really like for my birthday this year is for you to just get a card or some paper or whatever, and just write down what our friendship means to you. Just write that. That would mean the world to me, to be able to do that. And I got these beautiful, I mean, I'm getting emotional just thinking about it. I got these beautiful letters, cards from my chosen family. These are people that I've known in recovery for a long time, so that I've been through the trenches with these people. They know my story. We really care and love each other. They're my siblings. These are my chosen siblings now. So to have them write letters and tell me how much the friendship means to them was so beautiful. And even now, obviously I kept these cards, I kept these letters, and it was just really nice to feel really seen and heard. And yeah, it just nourished the friendship. It really nourished the friendship in a very different way. And yes, and it's because I took the time to sit down in the birthday round table and think, okay, what do my parts want? And these younger parts really wanted to be seen and really wanted to feel valued in the friendships that I built over the years, and that was really, really beautiful. That was really, really beautiful. I remember once there was another. I'll share this other story. So I can't eat wheat or gluten, right? So getting birthday cakes can be a bit of a drama for me, right? Because I can't eat wheat or gluten. I can't eat dairy either. I'm allergic to it. So I normally go to this one place where I get the birthday cake, but it's really frigging expensive to get a birthday cake made with this company. And normally I just, I've in the past I've kind of just paid for it because I just like I really want this cake. And this company does this really really, really cute rainbow cake. So it's layered with all of these different colors, and then there's buttercream inside, and it's got hundreds and thousands and stuff over there. Honestly, the cake is really nice and it tastes really fluffy. You wouldn't think that it was gluten-free or vegan or whatever, because sometimes these cakes can taste like frigging cardboard. They just don't taste very nice. But this particular company do these amazing cakes and they taste really nice. So this one year I look on the website and they put the price of the cake up. And I was vexed. I was thinking, oh, I'm not paying that price for that cake. That's ridiculous. I'm not paying that price for the cake. So anyway, I was talking to my therapist about it because I always talk to my therapist about what I'm doing for my birthday and processing the grief and all the rest of it. And she told me off. She said to me, how does your younger part feel about this, you not getting the cake? And I had to admit in the session that actually my younger part is feeling sad about the fact that I'm considering not getting the. She said, you better go on this website after the. She told me off. She said, you better get that cake. You better get that birthday cake. And immediately when she said that, it's almost like I just gave myself permission to go, do you know what? She's right. And we were both laughing about it. She was saying it very tongue in cheek, but we were both laughing about it. I'm like, yeah, it is a bit expensive this year, but this is the one year, this is the one time of year that it's important that I celebrate myself. So I need to fix my fingers and get on that website and buy that cake. And obviously, of course, I bought the cake and it was nice. And my inner child really liked it. My inner children really liked it. So yeah, and now it becomes something that I actually really look forward to because I plan it in advance. I take my time. There's a labor of love, and my inner loving parent, my inner mother, and my inner father actually, but my inner parents really, really enjoy sitting down at the round table every birthday and taking the time to kind of think about these things. And actually, I've introduced this thing to people that I care about as well, and I kind of done it. I've introduced this to my friends and stuff as well to do it this way or that way. And, they're into it. They're into it. So, yeah, I mean, having these things this is really a care plan. This is a birthday care plan, what I've just explained to you, having the birthday season, sitting down with but having a birthday round table, and then allowing your inner parents to kind of execute what needs to be done. So by the time your birthday season comes around, you're excited. All the presents that you bought for yourself, but it doesn't matter how small those things are, you've wrapped them up or you've booked them or whatever, you've got the dates in place, and you're looking forward to it. I think last year I did so many things last year. I had a gathering at my home, like an inner child birthday party, which was really sweet. I went and did a Ethiopian food cooking class, which was really nice. Learned how to make I can't remember the name of the bread. Was it injera that you call it? I learned how to make all that, and gosh, what else I did? I did a calligraphy learned how to write calligraphy class. I did so many things. I did take a full sabbatical, I took the full month off work. I think I maybe did a couple of clients. But I took pretty much the whole month off work last year. Um, it was just really nice. I just really, really enjoyed it. Really, really enjoyed it. I potted about at home. I think I did go on retreat as well. Just took some time off just to go on retreat, and I just really nourished myself. And it was really, really nice just to really take care of myself. And at the end of it, I'd sort of, so then I'm not, I'm not externalizing my birthday and expecting everybody else to celebrate. I celebrate myself first, and then I invite others to celebrate the birthday with me. They did celebrate it with me. And that was really lovely. And now when it's other people's birthdays as well, I have a different relationship with birthdays. So I'm able to celebrate other people's birthdays in a different way as well, because I celebrate my own. I can celebrate I can show care in a different way because I celebrate myself in a different way. There's no longer this resentment that I had when I was a young adult, around people sending me, oh, can you, yeah, I want you to really come do this, that, and the other for a birthday. Immediately I would get defensive and resentful because not because of the person, but because of my own relationship to my birthday. Okay. So, and so I'll just finish by saying that, doing this healing work doesn't mean that birthdays are not going to be painful. Okay, doing this healing work does not mean that your birthdays are not going to be painful, but the difference is that you change your relationship to birthdays and you allow your inner loving parent to celebrate you in a way that you were not able to do before. And that is just absolutely amazing. That is absolutely amazing. So if you enjoyed this podcast and you would like to get hold of the workbook that I've done around this podcast, then you can click the link in my bio, go to heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. Go to that page, and then you go to the free tools tab, and then go there, and it will give you the link so you can download the free workbook. If you've got any questions at all that I've shared today, about anything that I've shared today, then you can email me info@yardofgreatness.com, and I'll be happy to answer them. And please share it with a friend if you think that they would find this useful. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye bye.